to you at the end of class today, so please make sure that I get those back to you. If you turned in your essay question part in person, I have almost all of them recorded on Blackboard. I graded a few that I think I left at home, so they're graded, but they're not in Blackboard yet. So y'all watch for your grades to be posted in Blackboard today. Let's see what else. And also another thing that will be posted on Blackboard today is our fourth 25-point activity. It's an activity about the sociological definition of marriage and some social patterns that go with marriage around the world. Things like homogamy and endogamy, which you will need your textbook to look at what those two words mean. And there's like two sections in chapter 10 that you'll have to read about homogamy and endogamy, and then the sociological definition of marriage. There's an article that you need to read from sociology.com. I've got that I have that listed in the assignment, and there's also an episode of Married at First Sight that y'all will watch for the. Have you seen it before? This is not trashy reality TV. This is sociology reality TV. Pardon me. Final grades are not due yet, so do not call sociology TV trashy. Yes.
None of that is real.
Around that show is just not smart.
The concept around that show is sociological. That's exactly why you are going to read, and the assignment explains it all, but you're going to make sure that you understand the sociological definition of marriage that we talked about. When did we get that in our notes? Wednesday of last week. Also, homogamy, which is a concept of matchmaking that suggests that people who have the most in common in their background, things like your political philosophy, your religious philosophy, your socioeconomic level, your education level, the more things in your background that you have in common with another person, homogamy is a concept that says matching people with similar social backgrounds results in more successful long-term relationships. Okay, so, and that's the concept, homogamy and endogamy, another concept where people marry within their own social group. Those concepts are the basis for things within their own social group.
Can you elaborate on that?
I'm sorry?
You mean like social institution, like family?
Like your religious community or your political community, or like, for instance, religion is used often as an endogamy kind of component where it tends to create more harmony in a relationship if you and whoever, whether it is a best friend or whether it's a spouse, however more in common you have with those people, more common background you have with those people, the easier time it is that you're going to be able to get along with each other because you're coming kind of the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. If you're both Methodist, or if one's Methodist and one's Jewish, the differences, the bigger differences that there are in the religious background, for instance, just because I've chosen religion as an example, then the more potential turmoil there can be moving forward because of ethnocentrism, really.
Like a Democrat dating a Republican?
Yes, so a Democrat and a Republican can certainly date and have a very long, happy relationship, but they probably will have to base that on not talking about politics, right? Mm-hmm. Because politics is another thing, that, like religion, that we tend to feel very, very strongly about. Mm-hmm. So, and then race also. There's a lot of racial endogamy practices where families, as a matter of fact, I chose the episode of Married at First Sight specifically because there is some discussion about mixed racial people, mixed racial marriages, family supporting or not supporting those relationships, because even though we have monogamy in the United States, which is 2 spouses at a time and only 2 spouses at a time, if those 2 spouses have family members who are constantly in their ear about something, then it matters whether mom and dad like him or her, because mom and dad are for sure going to tell you they don't like him or her constantly, right? Constantly they're going to be telling you these things. So anyway, yeah, so there's an episode of that and some questions that you have to ask just about like a sociological standpoint. But Nadia, when you're like, that's a bad idea, most of the people, most of the family members in the episode that I've assigned also in this activity are kind of have that first reaction too. Although one of the participants comes from a history of arranged marriages in his family, so he's a little bit more zen about the situation than maybe you and I would be.
Arranged?
Because we have gone through a socialization process where arranged marriages are foreign, they're weird, some people, I've had students in the past say arranged marriages violate human rights. I've had people talk about that potentially. So anyway, we're going to look at this from a sociological perspective. We are going to be value free and not impose our own opinions on it, and you'll see that assignment posted in Blackboard later this afternoon sometime.
This is going to be
Okay.
a fun assignment.
I think it's a fun assignment. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Anything involving love is always fun.
Oh, no. Does the sociological definition of marriage have anything about love in it?
Oh, sorry.
No.
So a sociological definition of marriage does not have anything about love in it whatsoever. So anyway, make sure that when you start this assignment, you do you do these things in step, right? Because I'm telling you to, get these definitions in front of you and look at them from a sociological standpoint, and then read this article and watch the show and answer some questions. Okay?
But if we've already got our 325 point things that we're good on,
Okay, just a second, Amanda, you're distracting me. Just a second. What was the question?
we've got to do 325 point things. This fourth one doesn't count.
Oh, no. You're almost right. You have to do 4
Okay, so there's
25 pointer. Yeah, all 4 of the. Okay, on the syllabus, there's 5 25 point assignments because I only want to count 4 of them. It's like your own personal grade curve. So if you were absent for a day that was a group assignment, this assignment about Married at First Sight, this assignment is all 100% you. So there's no group component to it. So all 25 points are on you. And that's good or bad? Yeah, all 25 points are on you. So yes. So this is the 4th one. So after you complete this one, which is going to be due on Friday, by the way, I'm going to post it on Blackboard, and you're going to submit it on Blackboard. So it'll be due on Friday, and then the 5th one will be due. The 5th one will be available for you on over Thanksgiving week and do the.
How many days do we have off for Thanksgiving? A week?
Baby box, tattoo,
Cool.
hidden roles, and poverty.
The poverty and global perspective was project 2. It was a 50-pointer.
Okay.
So it was a 50-pointer. Yeah, I'm. You scared me for a second there. I'm like, can I not count to 4? Because I was a little scared that I had actually given you 4 already. But no. So okay. So the poverty and global perspective was a 50-point project 2, right? We had 2 50-point projects. Did your hand go up? No. Okay. We're good. Okay. Y'all want to talk about religion today?
Not really.
Oh, religion is not a controversial topic in
Okay.
sociology at all. So you don't want controversy.
I actually want to listen to it because this is the first time we're going to have like a discussion about religion because in school you can't really talk about it.
That's true.
Well, probably, so if you've been told in school you can't talk about it, it's probably you can't talk about the specific beliefs of a specific religion, and we're not supposed to get in a fight about how you're wrong and I'm wrong, or you're going to hell, no, you're going to hell, right? We're not supposed to have those kinds of conversations. Like in life in general, that's not a good plan. But in sociology, when we talk about religion, we are going to be very, very general, just like we were with the family definition, right? The definition of family from a sociological standpoint is non-biased. We talked about the, quote, typical family in the U.S., and we said words like mommy and daddy and sister and brother. But does the sociological definition of family have those words in it? No. And we have a sociological definition of marriage. But does that marriage definition have husband or wife, those words in it? No. So we have to be very, very general, and so we're going to have a definition of religion that does not have the words heaven and hell in them. It does not have nirvana or enlightenment in it. It doesn't have any of these belief systems that go with major world religions. But it just looks at this concept, this real social institution, from a macro level standpoint. It gathers all of the religions of the world together and examines them in a major macro way. What does religion do for a group of people? And that's how we look at it from a sociological standpoint as a social institution. So, religion. Religion is a social institution, and because it's a social institution, we need to know what does it do for society. It unites people with a set of beliefs. It unites people, gives people something to believe in, and if your beliefs are similar to mine, then we can find some commonality. If your beliefs are different than mine, then we can find barriers between us. But religion, that's one of the things that religion does that. It unites people. Religion unites people under a set of beliefs. It provides a framework for social behavior. And it gives meaning to life. Religion gives meaning in life or to life, however you want to word that. Meaning in life. So, as a social institution, we know that this exists on the macro scale. This is a macro scale concept. And when we say religion here, since Islam and Judaism and Christianity and Hinduism, et cetera, all of those major world religions that you know about, all of them come underneath this umbrella. So all of them have beliefs that unite people. And on the flip side, it can separate us too, right? Because if I am for somebody named God and you are for somebody named Allah, there are some differences there, right? That we are suspicious of each other, at least at first. And we have to see if these barriers, if we can overcome these barriers. But if you have somebody named God in your life and I have somebody named God in my life, well then there is maybe, there are fewer barriers maybe for us to jump over, right? So it can unite people under those beliefs when those beliefs are similar. It provides a framework for social behavior. What word does this remind you of? What major sociology term does this remind you of? Social behavior. What guides our social behavior? Say it. Norms. The word is norms, right? Specifically, I won't ask you to remember this one, but specifically mores. That's one of our 3 types of norms. And what did we say mores were based on? Morals or morality. Yes, social behavior based on morality. Yes, so that's another thing that religion provides. There's different codes of morality under different religious philosophies. For instance, I have a friend who is Buddhist. She explains to me that in Buddhism, you are not supposed to hurt another living creature, not emotionally, not physically, not any kind of way, not socially. And she is a vegetarian because she carries this religious philosophy about you must not hurt another individual or another living thing. She takes that religious philosophy to her daily life, her daily norms. Do what?
Don't they believe in reincarnation?
In Buddhism, yes, I believe that there's reincarnation. I think so. I think that's part of why. In general, the particular belief that Buddhists, one of them that Buddhists unite over is this idea of let's not hurt, let's not spread gossip about each other, that would hurt each other socially, let's not be mean, nasty, and terrible to each other, that would hurt each other mentally, let's not hurt each other physically, or any other living creature, because I think the idea, and perhaps I should have used Hinduism as an example instead of Buddhism, but because I know a little bit more about Hinduism. But yeah, those kinds of moral codes feed into the mores of a society, and depending upon what your set of beliefs are in a society, what the dominant set of beliefs is in society, then the norms of that culture will, the mores specifically, will come out of that. Right, I think it's Jainism, and you can't even eat. You can eat an apple from a tree because the tree is still alive, but you can't cut the tree down. Right? Is that right? Oh, I was thinking you were going to tell me. I was thinking that you were going to tell me because, yeah, Jainism is a subset of Hinduism, I believe, that takes that.
It's another spin-off of Buddhism. Hinduism is a spin-off of Buddhism.
I'm not sure. Y'all know more about these religious spin-offs, as you say, than I do. But yes, so you can see that the moral code, the social behavior that is required to be, I guess I'll say good with, or right, these moral words, it comes from the set of beliefs that unite people under that religion. It gives meaning to life also. Religion gives meaning to life. Since it establishes a framework for how you're supposed to behave with each other and in society, and since it provides you with kind of a social network to belong to, this unification of believers and the framework for social behavior, it gives you a reason. Religion typically gives a society in general. Remember, I keep on saying you. I need to correct myself or be more clear. Religion on a macro scale provides meaning to life in society in general. So in our socialization process, we will learn what are we expected to do, how are we expected to do it, why are we expected to do it, what's the outcome expected to be. So for instance, today, we're going to talk about one of the ways in which religion on the macro scale, is linked to the economy, because these mores, or the expectations for social behavior, can feed into expectations for honesty. Is honesty an economic concept?
No.
Can honesty be an economic concept?
Yes.
How can honesty be and how do we get this idea? Like, what does honesty mean, and what standard are we using to describe what honesty means? Doesn't it come from morality? So each religion will have perhaps a different code, a different framework for what that social behavior called honesty means. But how does honesty link to the macro scale economy? Has anyone ever been cheated in prices?
Mm-hmm.
What does cheating you in prices mean?
Making you pay for more than what you should.
You're paying for more than what you're really getting. You're thinking you're getting something great and the inside's rotten. Or you're thinking you're getting something great and it's filled with air instead of what it's supposed to be filled with, right? That is how honesty is linked to the economy. What really gives a capitalist capitalism, y'all remember how capitalism works? I just asked you in your essays, some of you chose that essay answer on the test recently. Capitalism works, remember, based on you own things. What are you supposed to do with those things? Just sit back and look at them? You can use those things that you own to make money, profit. Are you supposed to go and blow all that profit?
No.
You can blow some of it, right? But capitalism encourages you to reinvest at least some of that profit, not blow it all. And then once you reinvest it, you have more stuff that you own to begin with, and the cycle keeps on going, right? How do you after you get all of the social resources that are in a society, how do you keep earning profit if there's no more stuff? You sell it, so it has to have a price, right? And so that honesty, that idea of honesty, of how much profit can you really get for something, what's the value for something, right? There's this really kind of philosophical pot that religion can go into regardless of whether you're comparing it to family as a social institution like we focused on last last week, or if you're comparing it to economy as a social institution, like we're going to do this week. Okay, so this is the sociological definition of religion. Notice it doesn't have the name of any kind of deity in it. What does deity mean?
God.
A god or goddess, right? It doesn't have the name of anything like that in it. It doesn't have the name of spirits in it. It doesn't say anything about Awa or whatever the name of the spirit was in the Avatar movie. I remember that, the Tree of Life or whatever. Those kinds of concepts, though, are beliefs that can unite people. It sets up a framework for how you're supposed to behave with each other. That's what social behavior means. How are we supposed to interact with each other? What's the guidelines for that? And then also gives you meaning for life. What's the point in waking up in the morning? What's our goal in the end game, so to speak? And where is happiness? So is happiness something that we can link to religion?
Yes.
Many religious messages do, right? And so all that can be linked back to, just like the Buddhists, we don't eat animals because the reincarnation, we might be that animal, or we don't bring harm to anything because that's going to bring us to a better state of enlightenment and happiness, right? So these concepts come from lots of different types of religious beliefs have the concept of happiness, as like an end result, what you're working on, right? Okay, so, questions? Anybody? Oh, somebody's going to have to take a picture of this in your notes since I already started erasing it before I remembered to take a photo.
You know that assignment where you was, I think it was, I forgot which one it was. It might have been a girl on Friday. And you were like, no, it was the hip hop one. And you were
The
like,
hip hop documentary, yeah.
You were like, which shows should I use in the future for more assignments? I don't know if it's for them specifically, but I should have put Avatar.
The Avatar movie, yeah.
No, the Avatar.
The Last Airbender. I know some people have suggested that before, so I will be looking into that in the future. Okay.
I love that.
So we're going to still talk about religion, but we are going to talk about the link between religion and the economy. And we are going to start with a very famous sociologist who I just asked y'all about, Karl Marx. Thank you. You're finishing my sentence for me. Yes, we're going to talk about Karl Marx because he was super focused on the economy, right? He was super focused on how the economy can create certain kinds of social problems in society, especially the two social classes that he focused on. What do we call those two social classes? The bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Very good.
He focused on, but I couldn't say it.
You just couldn't grab it. Right. Anyway, okay, so Karl Marx is famous, of course, because he thought that capitalism equaled a bad thing. Here's your really super Cliff Notes version of this, right? Okay, super Cliff Notes version. He said capitalism was a bad thing because capitalism, you were encouraged to own social resources, raw materials, social capital, he said. You're encouraged to own those, and they are limited. They're limited. So after a while, one group owns all. Who's that? What's that called? The haves or the bourgeoisie. I don't know why. I never have trouble spelling that word for some reason. It's simple words. It's simple
When
English
I was
words.
doing my work, I had to retype that.
That's
17
17 times? Yeah. So one group will end up owning all of the social resources. They're called the haves or they're called the bourgeoisie because social resources are limited. So if capitalism is this cycle that goes around and around and around and ends up at the same place all the time, constantly goes around and around, and social resources are being used up the whole time, then they are limited in amount, and after a while, one group, the bourgeoisie, own all of them. And then another group, what?
The proletariat.
Another group, the proletariat, what do they own?
They sell the work.
They own their own labor. They own their own labor, and who do they have to sell it to?
The working.
They are the working class. They have to sell their to the bourgeoisie. Yes.
I hate these French
I
terms.
won't be able to accept. I won't be able to accept the word bourgeoisie. Excuse me, the word bougie for full credit on the last test. But yes, bougie comes from that concept of bourgeoisie, uppity. Right? These are the upper classes. Yes, absolutely.
I did not know
You've got
that.
some videos to be watching online, sir.
Huh.
You've got some videos to make up. Okay. So yes, one group is the proletariat. Okay. So here is our quick and dirty review of Karl Marx's idea of social stratification, right? I might ask you for a review of Karl Marx's idea of social stratification on the final test, because we need to review some stuff like Chapter 7 on our final test. But I will need more than just this quick and dirty footnotes version, Cliff Notes version. I will need like complete college level sentences that flow and relate information to each other. Okay? Do you like my little interpretive dance there about flowing and relating information to each other? Okay. So here's the quick and dirty background about capitalism and Karl Marx. It was a two-rung ladder. The top is the bourgeoisie. The bottom is the proletariat. And we will need this ladder to illustrate the way he also looked at religion in society as it's related to the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Okay?
And the proletariat sold their...
The proletariat have to sell their labor, they own their labor, and the only thing the proletariat can do to buy things that they need to survive, the only way the proletariat has life chances for survival is to sell their labor to the bourgeoisie, whatever wages they can get. Of course, you have to spend those wages on rent and food and all the basic necessities for survival, right? Hopefully you've got some left over for advancement and comfort. Don't we all kind of want some life chances for advancement and comfort too? Not just the subsistence. It's kind of part of the American dream, right? That advancement and comfort thing. But in Karl Marx's estimation, the only thing the proletariat could do was sell their labor to the bourgeoisie. Whatever wages they got, they had to buy stuff to live on. Well, who owns all the stuff? The bourgeoisie. So so they're selling their labor to the bourgeoisie, and then they're buying stuff from the bourgeoisie, just giving them right back the money that they paid them in wages. Okay, so that's quick and dirty Karl Marx and capitalism, bourgeoisie, proletariat. Let's look at how he linked this economic discussion to religion and religious behavior in society on the macro scale. Okay, so Karl Marx on religion. Notice I'm going to say on religion in general. Now, the particular type of religion he examined, we know the particular economic system he examined, capitalism. Now we want to know the particular religious system he examined, and it is Christianity. Okay? Christianity. This theory, however, works with any religion. Any economic system, any religion, you can plug it in and analyze based on Karl Marx's ideas. We are going to use capitalism because we know the most about it. We focused the most on it in previous classes, and we are going to use Christianity because even though we haven't focused on it much we've used it as maybe some examples to set morality or the laws in the legal system. Maybe we've talked about it. But that is what he used when he was first examining the link between religion and social stratification. So, Karl Marx said religion has a direct effect on social stratification. Has a direct effect on social stratification. Here's how. Here's how. He says that religion is a tool that the bourgeoisie can use to control the proletariat. Religion is a tool that the bourgeoisie can use to control the proletariat. So I want us to analyze this statement really quick, and I'm standing over here by our two-rung ladder. I guess if there's just 2 steps on it, it's more like a step stool than a ladder. But I'm saying,
functionalist, right? His conflict is? Okay.
yeah, Karl Marx
That's
is
why I was
the
confused, because it looked...
So the question was, is Karl Marx a functionalist? No, he's not a functionalist. He is kind of, there's not just one father of conflict theory, but conflict theory that talks about like struggle over social resources. He's one of the main theorists that conflict theory in sociology came from his ideas. He's a conflict theorist. It's a good question, linking it back to theory.
Well, I just swore he was functionalist, and everything about him doesn't say functionalist. It says conflict theorist.
That's
why I
very
wanted
good.
to ask.
Yes, so good. Yeah. Okay, so somebody tell me really quick. You were very good to remember these words, bourgeoisie and proletariat, but Karl Marx had very specific ways that he defined both of these words, both of these groups of people. And so I need now for y'all to work together to tell me what is Karl Marx's definition of the bourgeoisie and what's his definition of the proletariat.
The bourgeoisie was the owners of all the means of production and distribution.
Owners of all the, say it again,
Means of production and distribution.
means of production, let me abbreviate it like that, and means of distribution. We'll abbreviate it like that. We said social resources earlier, right? Social resources is a more general term, but Karl Marx, when Karl Marx referred to social resources, he categorized social resources into 2 different types of stuff. One is the means of production. This sweater is made out of cotton and wool, a blend. Wool comes from sheep. They need land to graze on, right? They need a barn to sleep in, I guess. That we need cotton, we need land to grow cotton, right? That land, those sheep, those cotton plants, the harvesters and the shears to get the wool off the sheep, all of those kinds of things are part of the means of production. The means of distribution are the factories that ship stuff out to the stores, and you go on Amazon.com and buy yourself a sweater and it's in your mailbox 2-day free shipping, or a drone drops it to you or whatever. Those drone deliveries, there's a means of distribution. Okay, so we've said to this point social resources. Karl Marx says means of production and means of distribution. That means all the social resources necessary to produce stuff that we need to live, that the bourgeoisie are the group of people that own all of it after capitalism has its cycle. Okay? What about these folks?
They're owners of their labor.
They own their labor.
And sell their work for wages.
Sell it for wages. How much wages?
Whatever wages they can.
What the answer is whatever you can get, right? If you have a high level of skill, if you have a really high level of skill, then I have to pay you a lot, because if you are unique in the skill that you have to sell, then you can ask for a higher price. But if you don't know anything other than how to harvest cotton, then I can get you to do that for pennies a pound, like Lolly talked about in Lolly's Kin. I don't remember if we watched that section of that video, but she talked about picking cotton for a penny a pound. How much does cotton weigh? Not a lot. So you're talking about bags and bags, like mattress-sized bags, before you have $1 even for her labor. Okay, so bourgeoisie, proletariat. These are the definitions. Why did we have to review those definitions? Because I want to analyze this statement right here. So Karl Marx said religion's a tool that the bourgeoisie can use to control the proletariat. So let me give you the name of a profession. And you tell me by these two definitions, is that profession a bourgeoisie person or a proletariat person? Okay? A minister.
Proletariat.
I've got half proletariat and half bourgeoisie. How about a preacher?
Proletariat.
Got one for proletariat and some
They're
silenced
working for
others.
someone, though.
Oh,
So
okay. Let's look at what Amanda's statement
They're
is. So a
proletariat.
minister, a preacher, a priest. Do they own the church?
No.
Do they own the pews that people sit in the church?
No.
They own the house that maybe the church provides for them to live in? How do they support all that? They might be in control of supporting all that and paying the bills for all that, but how does that happen? How does a minister, what do you say? The minister is selling his or her labor to all of the members of the congregation. According to this, which members of the congregation would have the most money to support the church? Yeah, okay, is the right answer here because I maybe should have asked you a preliminary question before I asked you that one. So, how does a church support itself?
Donations.
Donations, okay? Donations. So, in the congregation, who in the congregation is going to have the most free money to donate?
The people.
The people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let me go with this for a second. Okay, so the answer is a minister, a preacher, a priest. These people are, as Amanda said, selling their labor. In this case, there's a little bit of a gray area because churches sell their story, sell their message, using the minister, the preacher, the priest to sell that information, and they pass the collection plate around and it goes to every member of the church. Now, if the proletariat is predominantly unskilled, if you are unskilled, do I have to pay you very much to work in my t-shirt factory?
No.
No. And as a matter of fact, if Amy's working in my t-shirt factory and she's making $2 an hour, and she's going home to her terrible apartment that she can't afford to put the heat on, and the windows, there's a crack in one of the windows and the winter cold is coming in, she can't afford that, and her kids are hungry and she can hear their stomachs growling when she puts them in bed at night. Does she have mental or physical well-being when she's suffering like that, knowing that her kids are suffering? No. So she might come to the bourgeoisie and who owns the factory and say, please, I need a raise. I can't feed my babies. I'm going without food myself just to have them eat, and I'm feeling sick, and winter's coming, I can't even afford to heat the house. And do I necessarily care? Because she's getting $2 an hour. Preston over here doesn't have a job at all. He's begging me for one. There's no position for him on the line, and I can maybe even get him for $1.80.
This sounds like a.
So I have no incentive whatsoever. If I pay you more, my profit goes down. If I pay her more, I get less productivity, and that's what my bottom line is. And she didn't have to have all those babies that are hungry at home, did she? No, she didn't. Now she does, and this is just the climate, and she just is going to have to do it, because if not, he's waiting for a job, and he won't care that I put her out on the street. So, the bourgeoisie make a profit off of these people, and if she can't even afford to heat and cool her house or have food in her baby's bellies, how's she going to put very much, if anything at all, in the collection plate when it goes around? She going to have much left over to put in the collection plate?
You're only supposed to put 10%, right, of your total earnings?
10% of a negative number isn't
Yeah.
much, right? When your rent is past due, you don't have enough for milk and bologna.
But technically,
Heat.
you're not supposed to take that into account. Not
Technically, you're not. The bourgeoisie, these are the ones with the money to tithe. These are the ones who can have the preacher over for supper and talk about their favorite Bible stories. Talk about their favorite messages. the ones that they like to hear preached on. Yeah, and this, the life of a proletariat here, that life that I just described Amy and her family having, does that sound like it's a happy life?
Not really.
There's not any physical or mental comfort. Sometimes she's having a trouble struggling with life chances just for subsistence in the description that I just gave you. And this is a real life kind of situation. The Christmas Carol, Charles Dickinson's Christmas Carol, talking about the poverty that people had, the struggle that people had, is a real part of history that he lived through and made these observations looking at people dying in the street from hunger. And other people, fat cats, if you will, daddy warbucks like Annie had, making lots of money and living high on the hog, as we say in the South, while others starve. And you said the minister is a proletariat? You're correct. The minister doesn't own the church. The congregation owns the church. Who are the major contributors in the congregation? These folks. So here's a famous quote from Karl Marx that you need to memorize. I haven't asked you to memorize much this semester. Y'all need to memorize this. It's a really common phrase that some of you will have already heard it when I write it on the board, but you won't be sorry if you commit it to memory now, because you'll hear it over and over again in economics class, in history class, in political science class, and lots of other classes. Religion is the opiate of the masses. Someone finished my sentence. Good. It's not my sentence, actually. It's Karl Marx's sentence.
I heard this.
Religion is the opiate of the masses.
I'm trying to remember what class I heard this in.
You'll hear it in lots. You'll hear it in lots of classes. Okay, so let's take this quote apart really quick and then go back to the ladder and talk some more. What does this word mean?
I think of drugs whenever I hear that.
Opiate is a drug. You should think of drugs when you hear of the word opiate, because it is a category, a specific category of drugs. What does this, anybody know what this particular category of drugs, opiates, what do they do?
They like take your stress away.
It's not about stress.
Raise your muscle pain.
It's pain, yeah. Opiates are painkillers. Opiates are really, really, really highly effective painkillers. They numb. Opioids.
Yeah.
Oh.
They numb pain. And Amanda, you said something about stress.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're numbing physical pain, your mental pain also is numbed. But most often, opiates are prescribed to numb physical pain. Okay, Karl Marx is using this word metaphorically here, right? So because religion can really soothe pain. I did not ask y'all to look for this when you were watching Lolly's Kin with me, and so I know some of you watched the rest of it at home on your own, but Lolly many times would sing to herself religious songs about her reward being across the River Jordan, her reward being in the afterlife. She would be suffering from daily work or whatever she was doing, and she would say, "Lord, help deliver me from this, Lord." She would just break into little religious messages for herself. Religion, Karl Marx said, is an opiate. Opiates are really highly effective painkillers, the most highly effective painkillers, but the reason we know about the opioid crisis,
They're addictive.
super addictive, highly addictive. If you're in pain and you find something that can get you out of that pain, honey, you want more. If you're in the kind of pain we're talking about right now. Did I describe some pain a minute ago in the lifestyle that I described with Amy and her kids?
Yeah.
We're talking about physical pain, like being too cold at night to really relax and go to sleep. We're talking about mental anguish because she's listening to her baby's stomachs growling them to sleep. Not knowing whether they're going to be out on the sidewalk because they can't afford the rent. They're going to be evicted. This is some painful kind of living. And on Wednesday, in the middle of the cold snap, when she goes to work at this t-shirt factory, she knows that the guy next to her and the guy next to that and the gal next to that and the gal next to that, she knows that all of them have the same experience. And she might start talking to him like, "We can't take this anymore. We can't survive another winter like this. We have to stand up and make somebody listen. We have to band together. Have you heard of strength in numbers?
Yes.
We have to strike. We have to do something so that these people will pay us enough to feed our babies. To not freeze together in our own beds or be put out in the cold street and sleep on benches in the park. We need to demand, and she gets everybody organized. And y'all are getting fired up, and y'all are like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll go. We'll demand. We'll overthrow these bourgeoisie, and we will take control, and we will make sure that we have a better life. Because there's strength in numbers, and we can unite our voices, and they will have to listen. They can't live without us. They're not going to make their own T-shirts. They need us.
Like you said, Preston's out there waiting.
We got some scabs who want to walk across the picket lines,
Sorry, Amy.
right? So she's got everybody organized. On Friday, they make a plan that Monday morning's the day. Monday morning's the day, y'all. They all go home and they scrape together whatever they can to eat on Friday night. But on Friday night, the bourgeoisie has the minister over for supper and talks about how Christmas is coming up and it's just one of the favorite times of year. And, you know, I just love that story about how Almighty God, what's Almighty mean? Do anything they want to, right? Almighty means they have control over everything. So I just love that story about how Almighty God, who could have chosen palaces built out of marble and gold leaf walls and crystal chandeliers and alabaster fountains and indoor plumbing and all these kinds of things, could Almighty God have chosen that for his only son to be born into this world? Could he have chosen that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what Almighty means. He could have chosen that. What did he choose instead?
For his son to live
Bare minimally.
bare
The-
minimally.
Worse than the bare minimum. Amy over here at least had an apartment of her own with her babies in there. They
Relative
were on the road.
poverty.
They were in, what do we say, a stable? It's a barn, y'all. Any of y'all ever been in a barn? They don't smell pretty,
Once never.
right? They don't smell nice. It was a barn. Y'all know what a manger is? The baby was born in the stable and placed in a manger. A manger is a food trough. And you know what, y'all? Farmers don't clean those feed troughs out. There's old food caked in there. Mice go in after the animals are finished wiping their saliva all over, and the mice are eating and laying, and flies are laying maggots, and mice are peeing and pooping all in there. And there's not fluffy, glowing hay with cows with faint smiles on their faces, like on the cards. But that kind of poverty, that kind of homeless poverty situation was the choice. And I just love that message. I just love that message about how God is just so inclusive, that kind of poverty was his choice over all the choices in the world. That was his choice. I think that message is so important to recall. We just all need to recall about how lucky, how fortunate we are to have the things in life, because it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. And that was Friday night conversation at supper. And your Friday night conversation at supper was about demanding better things. But that preacher goes to church on Sunday morning and tells you the story about how much worse God's only son had it than you have it. So on Monday morning, do you go back into work and organize to overthrow? Or do you go home on Sunday and think, oh, God, forgive me for thinking I needed more. You had far less than I. And it can maybe make my pain of my daily life easier to bear. And I can do like Lolly
It took a while for us to get to that point.
and say, and then by the end of Friday, she's frustrated again, but she goes to church on Sunday morning and gets another hit.
That's very interesting.
You get it?
I get it,
guess.
yeah. It's
That's what I guess, because
That was Karl Marx's take.
yeah.
That was Karl Marx's take on it.
I know I'm not in church anymore, but when I was going to church, I did feel way better about life. I mean, I don't like crave to go to church anymore, but like my life was so much easier and I was so much more at ease. And now that I don't.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
church,
religion can do that for us. And notice I'm saying religion. My example was a Christianity example, right? Those were the examples that Karl Marx used. But I'm not picking on Christianity, okay? This is just the kind of ways, the ways in which Karl Marx said the bourgeoisie can use religion and religious messages, religious workers, to control the rest of the workers.
So they'll be less motivated to try to get the other resources of the religion.
So if on Friday night when you left, you were motivated to overthrow the system on Monday morning when you reconvened, then if between that time and Monday morning I can get a message to you that you should be grateful for what you have, because as bad as it is, it could be worse. And let me tell you how it could be worse. Because even somebody who could have chosen whatever he wanted, literally whatever, that's what almighty means, chose a much worse situation than the one you were complaining about with your coworkers last week that made you want to organize and overthrow.
It makes you wonder if this is actually like a conspiracy, like when it's brought to it.
Well, that's one of the reasons Karl Marx is kind of a controversial person, because we're extremely we are, even though you might not be a practicing religious person yourselves, in the United States, especially in the Bible Belt. Y'all know that we're in a geographic region called the Bible Belt.
The lucky
Yeah.
South,
We are very religious in general, and even if you've never set your big toe inside a church ever before, the norms in our society, because religion provides a framework for social behavior, the norms in our society are really closely tied to religious behavior. Now, there is a different take on capitalism and religion, a specific form of Christianity called Puritanism that we're going to look at on Thursday. It's not Thursday, it will be Wednesday, right, that we look at this. It's a super interesting take on how religion is combined with economy in the United States specifically. And since Thanksgiving is coming up, it'll be a wonderful Thanksgiving send-off for your Thanksgiving break. But religion in the United States, another conflict theorist, or actually sometimes he's called a functionalist and sometimes he's called a conflict theorist, Max Weber, looked at the specific religion of the Puritans or the Pilgrims that came over on the, came over and set up the colonies. They came for religious freedom, and they had a particular type of religious belief that was very different. It kind of, well, you know how we've talked about this word, Protestant, which means what? What's Protestant mean?
An altered religious views, right?
It's a collective form of Christianity that is a protest against what? Catholicism and Catholic belief. This message that I just gave you right here, Karl Marx had some really high criticism for the Catholic Church and Catholic beliefs in general. Many Protestant faiths believe exactly what I just told you about poverty being God's favorite position in society. Like, God will bless you more later on, because where's your reward? Your reward is not here. It's later, right? But some Protestant faiths, some disliked this concept so much that they took a different interpretation of some of the same traditions and religious notions that were predominant in Europe at the time. They took really an about-face, a flip-flop completely, and said, no, God is proving that he loves you when you can become better off now than you were in the past, or when you can set up a situation where your children will become better off in the future. That's proof that God has chosen you. That's proof that you're receiving God's blessings. It's an outward sign, so to speak, that your soul on the inside has favor with God.
Oh, so they believe that if you, the more you have, like
than you used to.
The more you have, but also the more generous you are with, because not everybody can have everything, right? Because poverty still exists,
Yeah.
but poverty in the eyes of the Calvinists was proof, was an outward sign that God was not blessing you. Why would God bother to bless you if you weren't saved, right? So yeah, there's a very different take that Max Weber came up with, but still a direct connection, again, between Christianity and the economic system we know of as capitalism, and specifically the flavor of capitalism that we have here in the United States.
That gets a lot of heated discussions about.
It can, but it's not, in sociology we don't condone heated discussions about religion. We want to look really at the macro scale and look at the way religion is a framework for social behavior, and we can look at how, right? Because, for instance, the haves and the have-nots concept of this. So in Hinduism, there is a cycle of reincarnation, and the religious philosophy is that you are born into your social position, and social mobility is not possible. So if you follow that strict religious message, then why even bother trying to improve your condition in life, because it is not founded in the eternal plan. So why even bother, right? So there's another way that religious messages can be used to keep people in place, right? So you don't have to just we're not picking on Christianity, we're not even picking on capitalism, right? But you can apply this concept to lots of different things. Other questions? It's really hot in this room. Y'all hot?
My
Is
bad.
it just like middle-aged woman hot flash or something, maybe?
That was a cheesy joke.
Oh, I just got it. Oh, I'm a little slow on the uptake there. Funny joke, Preston. Okay, any questions? Okay, so look for this video online later if you need to review anything, and also look for that